Begin today's show with the hidden heroes on the front lines of California's raging climate-fueled wildfires, prisoner firefighters. 1,500 of the 9,400 firefighters battling fires in California are incarcerated. They make $1 an hour, but are rarely eligible to get jobs as firefighters after their release. According to some estimates, California saves up to $100 million a year by using prison labor to fight its biggest environmental problem. CAL FIRE reports 2 prisoner firefighters were injured during Northern California's wildfire in the first 24 hours. Prisoner firefighters are more than 4 times as likely to be injured than other firefighters. This, according to Time magazine, which reports that more than 1,000 prisoner firefighters required hospital care between June 2013 and August 2018. Incarcerated firefighters live in 44 low-security field camps throughout California, including 3 camps for women prisoners and 1 for juvenile detainees. In 2017, prisoner firefighters spent 4 million hours on active fires. In September, the Democracy Now! Team traveled to the Delta Conservation Camp, about an hour north of San Francisco, to a low-security prison where more than 100 men are imprisoned. We interviewed incarcerated firefighters who just returned from a 24-hour shift fighting the Snell Fire in Napa County at the time. We spoke to them under the close surveillance of prison administrators. I began by talking to some of the officials from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
My Sergeant Reader, I'm the assistant camp commander at this camp.
How important are these fire camps of incarcerated people to fighting fires in California?
The inmate firefighters are the backbone of CAL FIRE. They get the toughest assignment there is out there.
What's the toughest assignment?
Whatever they're asked to do. So usually it's cutting line where a dozer can't go. So they get the toughest assignments in the worst conditions, 110 degrees in the middle of the sun, wearing 2 layers of clothing, carrying 40 pounds of gear. And then they have to carry all their food and water for a 24-hour shift, and then swing a tool the whole time.
And you're saying they do the toughest jobs?
They get the toughest assignments there is.
How much do they get paid?
$1 an hour.
So the state is really dependent on these prisoner firefighters?
Definitely, yes. They save a lot of money for the state.
You know about how much?
I've heard anywhere from $60 to $100 million a year.
Hi everyone, this is African Esquire TV and I'm your host, Tierney Cherie. What I want to talk about today is a story that I've seen in the news that was frankly disgusting but very indicative of the prison industrial complex and why it is an institution that has to be destroyed, in my opinion. Now, we live in a capitalist system, and with capitalism, they can basically hide slavery by paying someone a little bit of money, but still you're a slave, right? Because, for example, let's say I make you clean my house, but I give you a quarter. Well, technically you're not a slave because I'm giving you monetary compensation. I give you a quarter every day. However, in the reality of it, what can you do with that quarter? What can you go and do with it? Can you take care of your family? Can you take care of your kids? Can you build wealth? Can you invest in anything? No, you can't. I mean, you're probably going to waste that quarter just trying to get to the other side of town. And at that point, you're going to need more money to even finish your drive or your bus ride, whatever. The same thing is happening in the prison industrial complex. They have prisoners inside of these prisons who they make work. They don't force you to work. They give you the option because obviously a lot of these people, they need something if they want to have something for the commissary. So they'll say, okay, we'll give you $1 every hour. We'll give you $2 an hour. We'll give you $3 a week, something like that. And all you got to do is this work. And a lot of people wanting to have something. I mean, some of them have no one sending them any money will actually do this work. And it's an exploitative relationship, obviously, because this isn't money that's going to help this person. This isn't money that's going to be used to empower this person. If the person even sends this money home, this is not going to help their kids. This is not going to help their family. This is only used so that they can get past the technicality of slavery. Because technically, Even if you're giving someone something that they can't live off of, they can't pass down to their kids, they can't do anything with, technically, if you're giving them a little bit of money, technically it's not slavery. And this is why capitalism is a problem, because obviously it's happening on a bigger scale. When you look at people who are working at McDonald's, or people who are working at Burger King, people working at the dollar store, a lot of these people are being paid not enough to even live on. So they're basically put in a situation where you have to be dependent on the government for welfare, because otherwise, what are you going to do? Are you going to starve? No. So this is the way that capitalism is predatory, because technically it's not slavery, right? Technically we're not a slave. Technically we're being paid wages. But if they keep it on such a small wage, that the smallest that they can possibly give you, and because of that they can't charge you with slavery, but they can still use your labor and still have you do crazy types of jobs that would put you in danger, but they could still just pay you a little bit of money. Well, they don't have to worry about any constitutional challenges. They don't have to worry about anyone charging them with slavery. This is why capitalism is so powerful and manipulative and able to evolve. Notice, because at one point they were able to enslave us, but once it was no longer appropriate to not pay the labor, they found a way to evolve and make it something that is legal. Now, I say all this to say, I've seen this story, and this is in California. As many of you know, there are wildfires in California. People are losing their homes, and they found a solution to those wildfires. So I'm just going to read this story. Title: California inmates are being paid $1 an hour to battle wildfires. That's right, $1 an hour to possibly die from smoke inhalation, or even if you don't die, to contract health issues from smoke inhalation. $1 an hour. More than a dozen wildfires are burning in California, with the new hillside blaze forcing evacuations in San Bernardino, California. Some 9,000 California fire workers have been battling the fire, and aided by inmates in the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And while this wage for the firefighters is $81,580, you heard that right, they're getting paid $81,580. According to the Bureau of Statistics, inmates only receive $1 an hour to help combat deadly fires that are threatening lives, property, businesses, and wildfire in the state, and wildlife in the state. According to the CDCR, there are currently 3,100 inmates working at conservation camps. All of those, says the CDCR, 2,150 are fire qualified. In addition to inmate firefighters, camp inmates can work as a support and maintenance staff, such as cooks, laundry, landscapers, and water treatment plants. The hourly salary is in addition to their daily wage, which can range from $2.90 and $5 to 12 cents a day, depending on your skill level. Look at that. You can work just to get $5.12 a day. During emergencies, crews work 24-hour shift, followed by 24 hours of rest. During the 24-hour shift, an active emergency, the lowest skill level would earn $26.90 a day. Additionally, inmates receive time off for their sentences. Under a 2-to-1 scheme, for every day an inmate serves as a firefighter, they receive 2 days off their sentence. This is appalling. Like, so appalling. And this is why I don't understand how bold, the institutional white supremacy is. It's just so bold, because this is clearly inhumane, because you're taking people who are desperate. If you've been in prison, if so many people, it doesn't say how long, it doesn't even say there's a qualifier for how much time. Maybe they have 60 years, maybe they have 20 years, we don't know. But if you've been in prison, right, and you want something, right, and you would obviously try to work to get some days off your sentence, and so you're willing to do things that other people probably wouldn't be willing to do for wages that no one would be willing to do it for, and they're only using you and putting you in a situation where you really don't have much of other good options, And this is the type of thing that's happening over and over again with our people. But the fact that they would actually have these people in harm's way and have them battling fires that could kill them for, at the most, $26 a day. It's crazy. And not even, that's at the most, because the regular shift is said between $2.90 and $5.12 a day. I mean, how is it possible that this is legal? And this is why, you know, we're petitioning, we're working to petition the United Nations, because this is clearly colonialism. How do you justify this? How do you justify treating people like this? And you know how it's justified is that they demonize prisoners. You know, they say, oh, these are just prisoners. These are just people. You know, they've done crimes. Blah blah. Well, we don't know what crimes that person has done. They could be in prison for selling weed. They could be in prison for trying to do something just to help their family. It could be completely nonviolent offenders. People who are just put in prison because they lived in neighborhoods that are deprived economically, and now they're in a situation where they have to do something to try to get money. And yet these people are not just put in prison, but they're being used as labor to do things that most people don't want to do. And anyone who's willing to do it are getting paid, what, it would say $85,000 or $81,000 a year. These are the people who are willing to do it. But how do you justify not giving the other people that same salary? And of course, the justification is slavery. Because, you know, obviously, during slavery, there were jobs that we didn't want to do, but we had to do, right? And you have people who could also do that, but guess what? They wouldn't be getting paid nothing. They'd be getting paid something. They'd probably getting paid a lot, right? But us, we were put in a situation that because we were cast as being something that was not positive, or being something that was animalistic, because of that, they were able to exploit us. And they do the same thing now with the prison industrial system, because now they can make you feel like it's justified to do this to prisoners because of the word prisoner. Not qualifying what makes them a prisoner, not qualifying if they're even really guilty, because keep in mind, Black people are very much more likely to be convicted of something that we didn't do. So, but because they have that label, prisoners, we're supposed to turn an eye. We're supposed to forget about the fact that this is happening. We're supposed to say, oh, this is okay. This is, you know, how things are happening. It's okay. This is justified. This is all the manipulation of the society. So that's all I have on this story. I would love to hear you guys' comments. I mean, I wish there was some type of, you know, organization really fighting for this particular issue, because it's no reason why people should be used to fight fires that aren't even firefighters, just for convenience. You know, for a lot of people who are privileged so that they could keep their houses, they're going to be facing losing their lives. So that's all I have on the story, you guys. I will see you guys in another video. Hello family, this is African Esquire TV and I'm your host Tony Cherie. So recently I did a video where I discussed the fact that people of African descent in the United States are being colonized. And obviously we're not alone in this. People on the African continent are being colonized, people inside of the Caribbean are being colonized, people who are all over the African diaspora are all facing colonialism. But us specifically in the United States, we have to recognize that we're not just facing discrimination, we're not just facing racism, we're not just facing slavery or mass incarceration or whatever. We're facing a global phenomenon of colonialism, and it's being practiced on us the same as being practiced on those outside of the borders of the United States. Now, being someone who is of African descent in the United States, I wanted to start an initiative to actually bring this as a petition to the United Nations. I think it's very important, first of all, to do this. One, because us as a people, we have to start calling it what it is. We have to stop calling it just, oh, we need to fight discrimination, or we need to fight racism. We have to start calling it what it is. We need to fight colonialism. We need to fight the fact that there is a colonial presence in our neighborhoods, in our cities. The fact that we are being exploited on multiple levels and multiple tiers inside of the United States government. We have to start calling it what it is. Now, the other purpose of this is to bring recognition that the United States, who puts itself out there as being a champion of human rights, of course, you know, whenever there's a country that the United States wants to demonize, they always point out the human rights records of these countries. They talk about the human rights record of Robert Mugabe or of Gaddafi or of anyone, or President of Venezuela. They like to point out the human rights atrocities of people, but they don't want to be called out for their own human rights atrocities. And so it's important that the international community recognize that African people are being colonized here, and not just African people, but also if you look at what's happening, for example, inside of Puerto Rico, that's a form of colonialism in itself, right? So we want recognition, international recognition, that the actions of the United States are ones that a colonial master would be doing to its subject. And that is what is happening to our people in the United States. So this is a broad call to anyone who, first of all, identifies as being of African descent. Also, people who consider themselves human rights advocates, and I specifically want to emphasize people who have a background in something that's related to human rights. So for example, let's say you have a background in political science, you have a background in law, you have a background in international relations, like things like that actually relate to human rights and it would give you some type of expertise. And if you don't have that background, because I'm very much of the opinion that having a degree or having a job title does not necessarily qualify you for certain things. But even if you don't, just write an email stating why, although you don't have these type of expertise, why you think that you can actually exercise expertise in human rights as a part of this committee. And what we want to do is we want to form a steering committee that's going to steer this project of actually petitioning the United States, not the United States, the United Nations, that African people in the United States, Black people, we are being colonized. And so this is an open invitation, as I said, to anyone who considers themselves a human rights advocate and people who feel like they can be qualified to actually do something about the situation that's going on. Now, the name of the committee would be We Charge Colonialism. And of course, this is a play off of the We Charge Genocide petition that was made to the United Nations. It was a group of people of African descent who went to the United Nations and charged the United States government with genocide against Black people in the United States. So since we're doing something similar, I thought that We Charge Colonialism would be an appropriate name, at least as for now. So I'm going to read from a document that I drafted, and the title of the document is We Charge Colonialism, and this is the heart of the committee. And so if this is something that you agree with and feel passionate about, by all means, this is something that you should join. So reading from We Charge Colonialism. We, people of African descent living in the United States, charge the United States government with colonialism. Colonialism is defined as follows: the colonial system of political governance or extension of territory by which one nation exerts political power over another nation, territory, or a people, maintaining the colony in a state of dependence, its inhabitants not having the same full rights as those of the colonial power, and the controlling power is typically extended thus by the military force or threat of force. Africans in America first became victims of colonialism when we were taken from our civilizations in Africa and taken to the United States to be forced to work for the enrichment of a nation that was not our own. The economy of the United States has been propelled by our exploitation ever since. In 1865, following the abolition of slavery, new innovations were used to continue the relationship of exploitation between descendants of African slaves and the white ruling class of the United States government. Historically, Jim Crow laws, black codes, and other forms of discrimination were used as a means to continue the exploitative relationship between blacks and the white ruling class. Today, while these methods of colonialism have evolved, they still continue to exert political and social control over black communities and economic gain for white communities. Some of today's most notorious methods of exploitation are the prison industrial complex, the child welfare industrial complex, the school-to-prison pipeline, and the discriminatory banking system. All of these institutional methods of dominance have created a condition where blacks are being exploited to the benefit of a still ever-present white ruling class. The prison industrial complex, the child welfare industrial complex, and the school-to-prison pipeline in particular employ many white people, offering economic security to them while depriving our communities of our basic rights to life, family, economic opportunity, and education. The prison system goes further by actually using black prison labor to make products for billion-dollar corporations while paying the prisoners dollars and cents. Whereas the banking system has furthered black dependence on the white ruling class by rejecting small business or property loans, thus thwarting black applicants seeking to create wealth and self-determination in their communities. This leaves black people dependent on the white ruling class for jobs, access to basic needs, and also commercial products. Finally, as is stated, in the definition of colonialism, the controlling power, the white ruling class and its beneficiaries maintain control through the threat of force, with police departments all over the United States which monitor and oftentimes brutalize black communities. We charge colonialism and that the United States government, by actively colonizing black communities, has violated numerous human rights treaties, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, International Covenant on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples. As a colonized people, we demand the following remedies: the release of all non-violent black offenders from the prison industrial complex, the establishment of a review board composed of African American criminal justice professionals to review all convictions, sentences, and sentences of people of African descent, both past and present. The establishment of a community police force in neighborhoods where over 75% of the population is of African descent, ran by the local community members. The establishment of an independent education system in neighborhoods where over 75% of the population is of African descent, ran by local community members, adequately funded by the federal government. The establishment of an independent education system in neighborhoods where 75% of the population is of African descent, ran by local community members and adequately funded by the federal government. The establishment of an independent child protection system in neighborhoods where over 75% of the population is of African descent, ran by local community members and adequately funded by the federal government. Lastly, federal funds for the creation of black banks in every city with a population of at least 15% African Americans, and with local branches in neighborhoods where over 75% of the population is of African descent. Special funding will be designated to grants and low-interest loans for black businesses and property buyers. So again, this is the draft that I created, and this is something that I would like to work on, tweak, change, whatever. But this will be something that will be in the hands of the committee that we're forming. So if you're interested in joining this committee, if I sold you, please send an email to African Esquire African Esquire at gmail.com. Sorry. And the subject is put, we charge colonialism, and tell me your qualifications. What makes you feel like you can add to this committee? What do you think you could bring to this committee? Do you have any professional experiences? And that's basically it, guys. I will see you guys in the next video.